Yeah, we're seeing this now where either having the wins or having the playoff points have come at a premium, and there's been a few drivers where they've just had bad luck. And I feel like having good luck is what gets you out of the round of 16 because these bottom four, they're kind of staying the same. But with Truex now having two bad races in a row, he was the regular season champion. What what is it like to have your regular season champion, your most consistent driver in the entire series, now facing elimination if he potentially has a third bad race in a row at Bristol and carrying the colors of the race sponsor? I mean, he drives a Bass Pro number 19 car. I mean, he has the potential to go out early.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody saw this from Martin Truex Jr. going to 3 tracks in this first round that he is really good at. And the Toyotas have been good pretty much anywhere all year round. So him coming into the playoffs, get knocked out early at Darlington and knocked out very early at Kansas. And now he's sitting below the cutoff line. And I don't think going into this playoffs, nobody saw Truex having a shot that he wouldn't advance in. And it's proof that those stage points and those playoff points matter a lot because Truex comes into the playoffs with the most. And I think he was like 45 to the good going into Darlington, and now he's sitting a couple out. I think 4 or 5 points.
I think he's at -7. If we take a look at our points graphic, it may say that he's right on the edge. Yeah, -7, and like you said, he came in at what 2,036 points, which was about 40-something points above the current cut line. And I mean, it makes you also think like we've had, 28 races and 7 positions are now all that separates you from making the playoffs in the round of 12, continuing on for a chance to run for a championship and not being able to win a championship when he's been, I think, one of the most consistent drivers all year, minus these last 2 races.
Yeah, and going into Bristol, I expect Martin Truex to have a good car. At Kansas, he had a really good car. Just like a problem he can't control. A punctured tire, there's nothing he can do about that. Who knows if that doesn't happen? Maybe he goes on and has a good race, but what happened, and it's in the past. Right now, he's sitting 7 points outside of the playoffs, and he's going to have to race really good. He doesn't have to win to get in, but the guys that are in front of him, there's some hungry and very fast drivers that he's going to have to outrun. He's going to have to get stage points, and he's going to have a really, really good run at Bristol. And then points reset after that. So if he advances, he'll go right back up to the top of the leaderboard, which is the good part about having those points. But right now, he's got to have a good race to advance.
Well, when these playoffs opened for this round of 16, we saw a lot of people within less than 10 points of one another, single-digit points of one another. And now the cream has kind of separated itself. It's risen to the top. We've seen Tyler Reddick. He's had a really good 2 races in a row. He's with 1 win, and he's definitely locked in. Denny Hamlin, plus 49. You've got Ross Chastain, who was either plus like 5 or 6 at the beginning of the round of 16. He's now sitting at plus 18. Chris Buescher, plus 13. Christopher Bell, plus 13. Joey Logano, plus 12. And then Kevin Harvick at plus 7. So where we've had some people elevate their game, like Ross Chastain, to where now he's sitting a little bit more comfortably, we've also seen a couple of drivers go backwards, where Bubba Wallace had an incident at Kansas, which really put him behind the 8 ball. He's now sitting at -19. And then Michael McDowell with a huge wreck at Darlington that pretty much has, pretty much wiped away their chance of advancing. And I thought that if McDowell could get to the round of 12, he could be pretty dangerous. I mean, you've got a road course and a super speedway tracks that he excels at. So for me, I'm looking at these bottom 4, and there's 3 of them, -19 with Bubba Wallace, -22 with Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and then Michael McDowell at -40. Those 3 guys, they're in must-win situations, I think, right now.
And I think the biggest point out of those 3 is Bubba Wallace, a guy who was having a really good day at Kansas and caught the tire problem. And I'm not saying it's Goodyear. I think it was a mixture of, with Martin Truex's problem, I think that was a little bit on Goodyear. That tire had a puncture in it, and once it got up to speed and had the forces of the car on it, it gave out. But the other 2 with Bubba Wallace and Chris Buescher. I think that we've seen it with these teams. They try to push the cars and everything they can do to the cars as far as they can. I think these guys run these air pressures so low that there's problems like this where they're going to run them super low and eventually that tire is going to give out. And I think that's what Bubba Wallace and Chris Buescher saw. I think Martin Truex Jr., he had a bad tire.
And that happens sometimes.
Happens. Yeah, but for Bubba Wallace, running really well, probably had the second fastest car behind Kyle Larson before he ended up blowing a tire and hitting the wall. And from watching the wreck, it didn't look terrible. It looked like he could have got down pit road and changed the tire and maybe gotten back up to speed, but it was the toe link that killed him. He was running up by the wall, tire blew out. He went into the wall a little bit, and as they came down pit road, you saw the guy on the right rear. He took off the tire and just pointed, kind of broke hand signal if you're watching, and broken toe link kind of killed his day. He ended up getting that car back to speed, but never got the 2 laps down back. So for him, in a must-win position at Bristol after a day that could have been something really good at Kansas. But the other two, Stenhouse and McDowell, they're still in must-wins, but I just think their chances are very, very slim going into Bristol.
Well, the only thing that kind of gives me a little bit of hope for Ricky is that he's actually very good there. He's finished second at Bristol before in the past, and he tends to run really well there. Inverse, Bubba Wallace, not so good at Bristol. Average finish of around 20th. He's had 1 top 10 there in 8 races and has only led 6 laps. So if we're looking at who we're going to pick to get out of this bottom side, I think that maybe there is only one car in that bottom 3, so McDowell, Stenhouse, and Bubba Wallace, that may have a chance to advance. And they may have to either win the race or somehow finish really well in both of the stages. I think Truex could end up pointing his way in. I mean, 7 positions is not that much to overcome, but someone in that other, top 12, they're going to have some kind of problem.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that it's Truex has the potential to not win the race, point his way in. I think that the other 3, they may have to win the race to get in, and I don't think McDowell can do it. If I'm comfortable, I think that Stenhouse probably has the best opportunity out of those 3.
Yeah, I agree. But for these guys, even Truex, to jump this playoff bubble without winning it, it's going to be very hard. This track has been very even within manufacturers and teams over the past couple years since the next gen started. And Ford pretty much dominated it last year, which for Martin Truex, looking at the guys ahead of him, that doesn't look good. No. Being Ford, Toyota, Ford. And all of those drivers, including Christopher Bell, the lone Toyota out of the 4 that are in front of Martin Truex, those guys are going to be really good here. So for all of them, I think Truex easily can jump the 7 points that he's out, whether it's stage points or just finishing well. But the other 3, it's possible for Bubba Wallace. The other 2 are in must-wins, but still, they're going to have to win it.